All right, y'all. Some late breaking news. I'm sure you know the deal by now. I'm sure you know what's going on. But Trump has officially been indicted in the classified documents case. This is some big news. Of course, this is his second indictment in recent time. So, we can get into the specifics here. He's been indicted on at least 7 charges in federal court, including illegal retention of classified documents, obstruction, conspiracy. They also say potentially on the Espionage Act, false statements. So it's really it's a list of crimes, but what strikes me from this is that it seems to be more like the cover up after the fact, right? Like that's sort of what looks to have bitten him in the ass.
Well, I mean, the illegal retention of classified documents is not about the cover up. So you both have, and I think it's important that you have both like the crime and you have the cover up, so they can't say like, oh, it's just a process crime or whatever. So you do have both pieces here. What I had read previously, the speculation was they're going to use, I think it's section 783, which is that language that doesn't actually technically require the materials to be classified for it to be a crime if they're, sensitive national security secrets that are retained illegally. So they were trying to short circuit the potential Trump defense of like, oh, I waved my hand and magically, unclassified everything.
But there's also a process. He didn't go through the process.
Correct.
Having to do that.
Yeah, but they possibly used that statute to try to short circuit that potential defense.
So do you think the audio tape played a role in this? Because I do. There was apparently an audio tape where he's talking about like, I have this classified document, but I can't show you because it's classified. They have an audio tape of him saying that, which undermines his own argument of like, I could just, wave my hand and say this is declassified.
Potentially. I think between the number of documents, the gravity of the documents, the surveillance footage of him moving boxes around, they clearly had some informant or informants inside his circle. And that story about the pool flooding and that whole situation.
Yeah.
So,
my pool flooded and all my tapes which show my crimes. I can't get them now.
Yeah. So it seems to me like there was a lot that was there that led to this moment. And, the other thing is, of course, you would, in an ideal world, none of the decision to charge or not charge would be political, but obviously these decisions are very political. And the fact that you had the hush money indictment happen and the country didn't meltdown, fall apart, perhaps also emboldened Jack Smith to move forward with this set of charges.
Oh, that's an interesting point. I never thought of that before. That maybe the hush money, them kind of broke the seal. To do that, broke the seal. Yeah, so I want to read what he said. This
is Trump.
Yeah, and this will be, I want to address the main point, of course, which is, Biden did it. Pence did it. Everybody does it, because I think that's bullshit. And I'll explain why in a second. So he says, the corrupt Biden administration has informed my attorneys that I have been indicted, seemingly over the boxes hoax, even though Joe Biden has 1,850 boxes at the University of Delaware, additional boxes in Chinatown, D.C., with even more boxes at the University of Pennsylvania, and documents strewn all over his garage floor where he parks his Corvette, and which is secured only by a garage door that is paper thin and open much of the time. How would you even know that? He just says stuff. I have been summoned to appear at the federal courthouse in Miami on Tuesday at 3 p.m. I never thought it was possible that such a thing could happen to a former president of the United States who received far more votes than any sitting president in the history of our country. But far less than Joe Biden. Than any sitting president.
Right.
And is currently leading by far all candidates, both Democrat and Republican, in polls of the... Yeah, that's not true. Biden's been up on him in the last number of polls. In polls of the 2024 presidential election, I am an innocent man. This is indeed a dark day for the United States of America. We are a country in serious and rapid decline. But together, we will make America great again. So, look. Pence was found with some classified documents. The difference is he cooperated 100% immediately as soon as he was called out on that.
Yeah.
Biden, exact same thing. He was called classified documents, but the second he was called them, he's like, hey, y'all go do your thing. You want to search it, you want to take it, whatever, it's all good. And after the fact, there was nothing sketchy left over. With Trump, and this is where I get into more of my speculation, but I think it's merited speculation. Look, not only do you have these very high level, it's like the highest level of the classified documents, which is sketchy in and of itself.
Right.
But also, there's a decent chance he actually was selling this information. right? When you have Jared Kushner getting $2 billion from Saudi Arabia, you have Trump getting at the very least tens of millions of dollars, probably even over $100 million from Saudi Arabia for the Live Golf Tour events. Like, it's up. They can't even find that Iran document that he was talking about. And by the way, that's another country which has paid Jared Kushner millions of dollars. Israel has done that. So, I just hope that they have something real slam dunk. I think the cover-up stuff is kind of slam dunk, but I hope that the case itself, the original case itself, is also slam dunk.
I kind of suspect that it is, to be honest with you. I mean, this one, so with the hush money one, when the actual, the statement of facts came out, there were some interesting details in there, but it was not a lot that wasn't already in the public domain. It's going to be really interesting to read through how they lay out the case, what pieces they point to, what information they have behind the scenes that we may, not have any knowledge of, like what was on all those surveillance tapes, and can we surmise who was cooperating with them and what they had to say about it and all of that. I mean, we know they've been calling in so many of his past aides to testify. There was some reporting that Mark Meadows had taken a deal basically and was cooperating. They called in Steve Bannon. They called in that guy, what's his name, like Taylor Budowski or something like that. You know who I'm talking about? Anyway, they've called in a bunch of his aides. So, I mean, there may be a lot there. That
Mark Meadows was where all the bodies are buried, by the way.
Yeah.
He was talking to all these different people during January 6th.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes. So
but that's separate. I mean, it's separate from this case.
Yeah. So there may be a lot that we learn when we actually have these unsealed and are able to read through them. One other technical note I wanted to point out is they convened grand juries in both D.C. and in Florida, and they decided to charge him in Florida. That could have, significant implications in terms of the judge that he ends up in front of. One of the judges that were super favorable to him, that was one of his appointees, could end up with the case.
That would be crazy if they allow that. That would be insane.
The jury pool in the
be much more politically
Washington
diverse
D.C.
in Miami.
is the most democratic locale in the entire nation. South Florida is much more mixed.
If you get a jury full of Cubans, Trump is innocent man, totally innocent.
They're gonna with the jury selection process, they're gonna try to root out anybody who has obvious political bias, but you'd have a much better hand in terms of jury selection in D.C. So it's interesting to me that they chose Florida. Apparently, this is all just based on the legal analysis I've been reading because I'm no lawyer, but apparently they felt like the Trump team might have some legal maneuvers they could make to basically argue that the case was not being brought in the correct location if they didn't move forward with charging in Florida. So that seems to be why they did it. But it may make their case more difficult to get a guilty verdict on. So
we are, at least in theory now, looking at jail time. That's actually on the table. That's my understanding of the, sentencing guidelines for these type of charges. I mean, think about the type of charges. Take Trump out of it. If you heard, anybody else, Snowden or whoever was, retained documents, any normal person. Our kitty wants to play fetch. Our cat likes to play fetch. Any normal person, you retain. Is the fetch thing. Kitty. He brings it back to us. He brings back to us like a dog. Adorable. He's amazing. Yeah, he's bringing it back. But any normal person, they build a jail on top of you. There's no doubt about it. So yes, I think there is a potential of prison time. I mean, this is probably going to be a long legal process. It's crazy that this is all going to be playing out in the midst of a presidential election where, it is wild that you have the former president who is now running for president again, who is the front runner to be the Republican nominee, and he is being pursued by his opponent's Justice Department. That is an incredibly wild and unprecedented state of affairs. I don't think Biden had dick to do with this, though. I think he hasn't been checking in with Merrick Garland or Jack Smith or Jack Sparrow or whoever the fuck. He certainly, that would be my guess as well. Yeah, no way. No way. So final question. So jail time is on the table. I'm not going to ask you whether or not you think he'll actually go to jail, because that's a little too in the weeds at the moment for us to speculate on. Yeah. But is it going to matter, right? Like, is he going to go up
Politically.
another 5 points or 10 points now because he was indicted? Is he going to go up another 5 or 10 points with the Republican base now that he's indicted?
Yes.
Is he going to go down another, like, 2 or 3 with the general public now that he's indicted for the general election?
I think it's ambiguous. I don't know. I just feel like none of the stuff with Trump lands the way that it should. And even the fact that we already had charges kind of took some of the oomph. I mean, again, I'm not saying it should be this way.
But that cuts both ways, right? Which means, like, then he won't go up as much either. If the oomph is taken out, it's taken out on both sides, right?
Yeah, I think it benefits him to be, there's been a little stretch here where at least some other candidates have been a bit in the news. They're having their launches, Mike Pence and Christie and DeSantis. Although I don't know that DeSantis wanted his launch to be in the news as much as it was, but there's been a minute here where Trump hasn't been everything dominating the news, and that minute is now over because it's going to be wall-to-wall coverage of this. And anytime you have wall-to-wall coverage of Trump with regards to the Republican base, I think it's only good for him.
Yeah, so I think if he actually ends up going to jail, I do think DeSantis will win the nomination. And I know you disagree on that. You think he's going to win from jail?
Well, I don't even think the legal process will play out that quickly.
Oh, really? You don't think by then we'll have an answer?
I think it's going to take quite a while. I mean, we haven't even gotten to trial with the original charges. So
we'll end on this note. I'll just say I'm very interested to see what happens with the polling moving forward. I think the default assumption is he goes up like another 5 points with the Republican base, goes down another 2 or 3 with the general electorate. That's my guess. But I actually wouldn't be surprised if it's just like nothing changes at all.
Yeah, I could see that.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I could see that.
And I would be maybe like mildly surprised if he actually starts ticking down a little bit in the Republican
I haven't
primary.
seen a whole lot of reaction yet. It may be out there.
Well, I already see Republicans defending him.
Right.
Marco Rubio's out there defending him.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
I saw Jim Jordan came out right away and was like,
immediately cucking themselves.
Sad day for America.
It's just pathetic. All these people are so sad and so pathetic.
The question is going to be, like, what is Ron DeSantis going to say? What's Tim Scott going to say? What's Mike Pence going to say?
Look, I mean, they have a good argument, right? All they have to say is, like, can we get past the drama, right? Like, we need to be... And DeSantis has been leaning into, like, look, I can actually win. You really want to roll your dice on a twice indicted guy who might end up in prison?
I don't think they're going to say that.
He should, though.
I think they're going to defend him.
He should say that. Well,
I mean, they all defended him.
The ones who are not running are right now.
They all defended him initially with the Mar-a-Lago raid. This is part of that whole situation. So I think when they're asked about it, I think most of them are probably just going to try to, like, not say much about it. But when they're asked, I think they're going to defend him. I don't think you can go against this in the Republican primary.
Right now, certainly all the Republicans who aren't running are doing that.
Yeah.
So it'll be curious to see what happens with the ones who are running.
I mean,
God, they're such cuts.
Chris
Oh my God,
Christie,
they're such cuts.
who has already come out, on this as basically like never Trump. He'll go after him for it.
Oh, absolutely.
But
he's going after him for other things, which the other guys aren't doing.
But DeSantis and co, nah.
How weak are these people? It's so sad.
I know.
It's hilarious.
It's pathetic. And then they're like, I wonder why we can't get rid of Trump as our leader. It's like,
and then they're out there like,
I wonder.
Leave my guy alone.
Right.
Like, gee, I wonder why. I wonder why. Anyway, so pretty big news. At some point, we'll hit peak Trump indictment, hangover syndrome, and we'll just be like, whatever, 7th indictment.
Another indictment,
look,
anyway.
I'm just happy because I really hope that his bitch ass ends up in jail. That's all I can say.
That would be something.
Yeah.